Howdy folks, Doc here with Last Best Tool. And the other day I did a video on basically the number of different combinations of features that could be put into a ratchet, and that got unwieldy pretty quick. Originally I was going to include different kinds of ways you could turn a socket. Just taking a standard socket. How many different ways do we often use to spin that socket? I was going to go into it when I did the ratchets, but then the ratchets got unwieldy pretty fast, so I decided to separate this off. So here we go. So other than a standard ratchet, just like this, what are the number of different ways, or what are the different kinds of tools we use to turn sockets? And I guess I'm going to go, I don't know, maybe short to long here. On the shortest side, obviously, is the little spinners. And the spinners give you something that's more human hand size to grab onto. And of those spinners, there are spinners that have kind of a pass-through that allow you to stick something else into it, or you can use it with a ratchet. There are spinners that are designed to fit into wrenches like this. And this one then would leverage the ratcheting mechanism on a wrench, but of course I could also use it just with that O-ring kind of holds it in there as a socket turning device on an open-end wrench. And then I could just build a ratchet right into the existing spinner handle like this Koken here, which is pretty cool. So that's one option. Another obvious one is, instead of a ratchet, you attach it to maybe a dedicated kind of like a screwdriver handle. So you can take a standard socket here, and where'd my socket go? There it is. And just stick it into a dedicated tool like this, and a lot of them do have the pass-through. Some don't. Older ones don't, but that would allow you then to use something else, including a breaker bar, which I'll get to in a minute. Adding another way to turn a socket here. And then, of course, instead of just using a dedicated tool like that, why don't I just insert if I've got a removable bit, why don't I go to a standard socket driving bit like that? And now all the fun, wonderful features of my screwdriver handle of choice can now be transferred to driving sockets. But there's more. It isn't just this. I could, of course, get a hex bit adapter that would then allow me to run this into any kind of a hex screwdriver, and then any screwdriver that's got the hex bits would allow me to spin this thing. And there are different variations on those. Here's a PB Swiss, this one's a snap-on, which then takes any aspect of my bit driving handle to sockets. Or of course I can take it further. You might notice the bump there. I can use this in a drill or any of the kind of the quick detach type bits, or I can go with a dedicated set of socket drivers here that are designed to go right into that 1/4 inch hex. So those are super handy. What else? Well, T-handles. There can be the fixed T-handle like this one. This Philo here, nice simple design, ball detent, so you just throw on any socket and now you've got a T-handle driver. Here's a Vera. This one actually has a reversible ratcheting mechanism. Just flip the switch here and it has a lock, so I push the button in order to hold that on there. So it's a little bit more sophisticated, little spinning collar, so that's an option. You can go with standard handles like I mentioned before, or in this case, the Stavila, you could go with a locking handle. So sometimes that helps to keep the bit on. Sometimes if you're using rusty fasteners or the wrong size or something, or USA to metric, whatever, you can actually keep the bit on. So it's just an update there, and then it's got this hole that would allow you to stick something like a screwdriver through to make makeshift T-handle. Then there is this one's got a 3/8, but this Koken here has a wobble head. Wobble heads allow you, to come in at slightly off axis and still do a great job, but I can also snap it down to a solid direct alignment. So that's another option with these kinds of handles. As I mentioned, breaker bars, basically like a flex head there. A little bit stronger sometimes than ratchets, but you know what, honestly, you know, if the ratchet mechanism doesn't fail, it'll be in the flex head that fails. These are pretty solid. They're still, this is a snap-on. They're kind of pricey for what they are, but it's a lot less concerning to apply way too much pressure to a breaker bar than it is to a ratchet, even though many of the modern ratchets will actually stand up to some pretty serious abuse. Last one, as I mentioned, the different handles. There's also this. This is a, this one here is the snap-on. This is the, sometimes we call it the pit tool. This is the PIT 120. What it does is if you strike it here while you're holding it, it actually gives a bit of a twist to that socket, but you can also use it once you've broken it free as basically a ratchet handle if you want, although a very heavy one. And then this one is reversible as well. You just set it to the angle, or the take it on or take it off, whatever you want to do. So that's the last one. Most people don't use those, but a lot of people have them, and you don't use them for much, so you might as well use them for a handle if you don't have a nice little handle there. Anyway, I don't know if I missed anything. This is just what I discovered going through my toolbox, thinking about what are other ways to drive a socket in addition to a standard ratchet. Anyway, what did I miss? And with that, Doc out.